Robert De Niro had spent decades playing some of the most intense and complex characters in Hollywood. From ruthless gangsters to undercover agents, he had portrayed it all. But today, there were no cameras, no scripts, and no directors calling the shots. Today, De Niro was stepping into a real-life world of secrecy and security, one that even Hollywood couldn't fully capture. His visit to the Secret Service headquarters wasn't part of a film promotion or a publicity stunt. It was purely out of curiosity. Over the years, he had played roles that brushed close to law enforcement, intelligence agencies, and organized crime, but he had never seen the real thing up close. When an unexpected opportunity arose to visit one of the most secure buildings in the country, he couldn't resist. As he approached the headquarters, the atmosphere immediately shifted. The grand yet unassuming building stood tall, its exterior giving away little about the high-stakes operations happening inside. Security was tight, far tighter than anything he had ever encountered on a movie set. Armed guards, metal detectors, and layers of clearance procedures made it clear that no one walked in without scrutiny. When he finally stepped inside, the stark contrast between Hollywood's dramatized portrayals of secret agencies and the actual inner workings of the Secret Service became evident. There were no flashy gadgets, like in the movies, at least, none in plain sight. The air was thick with an aura of precision and discipline. Agents moved with purpose, their expressions unreadable. Even in a room full of people, there was an undeniable sense of control and secrecy. De Niro, despite his legendary career, was just another visitor here. His name and fame carried no special privileges. As he was led deeper into the building, a question lingered in his mind: what exactly goes on behind these doors? What he was about to discover would leave him speechless. As Robert De Niro stepped further into the heart of the Secret Service headquarters, he could feel the weight of the place. This wasn't just another government office, it was a fortress, a nerve center where some of the most critical national security decisions were made. The Secret Service was best known for protecting the president, but as De Niro quickly learned, their responsibilities stretched far beyond that. The agents around him weren't just bodyguards, they were highly trained specialists in threat detection, cybercrime, financial fraud, and national security. Every person he passed had a purpose, and every action seemed calculated. The tour began with a briefing on how the agency functioned. A senior agent walked De Niro through a large operations room, where massive digital screens displayed real-time security feeds, intelligence reports, and classified briefings. Agents sat at their stations, monitoring potential threats across the globe. It was a level of coordination and surveillance he had only imagined in movies, but here it was real. The headquarters itself was designed for absolute security. Every door required a key card or biometric scan, and surveillance cameras covered every inch of the facility. It wasn't just about keeping outsiders away, even those inside had access only to the areas necessary for their jobs. As De Niro walked through a hallway lined with framed photographs, he saw images of past presidents, world leaders, and Secret Service agents who had served with distinction. Some were moments of triumph, others were memorials to those who had made the ultimate sacrifice. It was a sobering reminder that this wasn't just a job for these men and women, it was a duty, one that sometimes came at great personal cost. At one point, De Niro was taken to a training area where new recruits underwent intense physical and psychological preparation. He watched as agents practiced disarming threats, neutralizing potential attackers, and reacting to high-pressure situations. It was nothing like the choreographed action scenes he was used to in Hollywood. These were real-life skills, taught to people who would have to use them in life-or-death moments. Despite all the security and seriousness, what struck De Niro the most was the sheer professionalism of the agents. There was no arrogance, no showboating, just quiet, focused determination. They weren't looking for recognition or fame, they were there to do a job that most people would never fully understand. As he continued his tour, one thought kept running through his mind. This is more than just protection. This is the front line of national security. As Robert De Niro moved deeper into the headquarters, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was a fish out of water. In Hollywood, he was used to being the center of attention, surrounded by cameras, directors, and a team of people working together to create the perfect scene. But here, in the heart of the Secret Service headquarters, The atmosphere was entirely different, quiet, focused, and serious. He felt out of place. The energy was palpable, but it wasn't the buzzing excitement of a film set, it was the intense concentration of people performing critical, often life-or-death work. Gone were the red carpets, the glamorous parties, and the flash of cameras. In this world, every action was purposeful, every conversation was significant, and every decision could have far-reaching consequences. De Niro was introduced to several Secret Service agents who explained their daily routines. They were polite, professional, and focused, nothing like the brash characters he often played on screen. They spoke with a quiet intensity, detailing the kinds of operations they were involved in, many of which were classified. The agent's role wasn't just about protecting high-profile individuals like the president. They were also involved in criminal investigations, cyber defense, and counter-terrorism. It was a vast, multifaceted operation that kept the country's most important figures safe. De Niro was particularly struck by the technology the agents used. They showed him an array of surveillance equipment, digital tools that tracked and analyzed threats in real time. The tech was far beyond anything he had seen on a movie set. As an actor, he'd played spies and intelligence officers, but the gadgets and tools he'd used in those films were nothing like the real-world equipment on display here. These weren't just props, they were critical tools used to prevent crises before they even happened. He could sense the weight of responsibility on the agent's shoulders. These were not just ordinary people, they were individuals who had dedicated their lives to protecting the most important people in the world, often at great personal cost. The secretive nature of the work was evident in every corner of the facility. Everything was classified, confidential, and designed to keep the operations running smoothly, away from the eyes of the public. As De Niro took it all in, he was in awe of the professionalism he witnessed. It wasn't glamorous or flashy, it was raw, focused, and above all effective. For the first time he was seeing what real-life protection and security truly looked like. The actors, the action, the suspense, it was all a far cry from what he was witnessing today. But despite the intensity and gravity of the situation, De Niro couldn't help but be impressed. He had always respected the men and women who worked in fields like this, but seeing it firsthand was something entirely different. The quiet pride in the agent's eyes spoke volumes. They knew their work was important, and they were determined to carry it out to the highest standards. As De Niro continued his tour of the Secret Service headquarters, something caught his eye, something he hadn't expected to see. After walking through several high-security rooms and observing agents at work, he was led into a secure area that immediately piqued his curiosity. The room was filled with high-tech gadgets, large monitors flashing with data, and wall-mounted screens showing live surveillance footage from across the country. Agents moved quickly, communicating in hushed tones, their eyes fixed on the monitors. The level of technology on display was unlike anything he had ever seen in the movies. "Everything you see here is real-time monitoring," one of the agents explained. "We track and analyze potential threats 24/7. Our job is to stay one step ahead of any danger, no matter how small the lead." De Niro was speechless. He had played the role of an FBI agent in films, pretending to chase down criminals and prevent disasters. But standing in this room, he realized how far removed fiction was from the reality of what these agents did every day. This was no Hollywood drama, this was a real operation, one that worked tirelessly to ensure the safety of the country's top officials. The agent pointed to a large display showing a map with red dots indicating potential threats. "These could be anything," the agent said, his finger tracing the map. "We track every possible threat, from international terrorism to domestic risks. We monitor airspace, ground movements, and even social media." De Niro's mind was racing. The technology at his fingertips seemed to predict potential dangers before they even happened. Threats that could otherwise slip under the radar were intercepted in real time, analyzed and neutralized before they had a chance to escalate. He marveled at the way the system identified connections between seemingly unrelated pieces of information, making it possible for the agents to act swiftly and decisively. One monitor displayed a series of images from surveillance cameras positioned around the White House. De Niro could see agents walking through corridors, watching every move in real time. What struck him most was the precision of it all. The data was processed instantly, ensuring that nothing went unnoticed. The amount of information flowing through this operation was staggering, and yet, it was all controlled with military-like precision. As he watched, he could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on the agents who operated these systems. They were protecting not just individuals but the very heart of the nation's security. The pressure was immense, and yet, the calmness with which they carried out their duties was almost eerie. De Niro couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. As an actor, he'd played a wide range of characters, but nothing had prepared him for the true complexity of what he was witnessing. The gadgets, the technology, the quick responses, it was all so far beyond the high-tech tools he'd used in movies. This wasn't science fiction, this was the future of security, operating in real time to keep the country safe. It was without a doubt the most impressive and unexpected discovery of his entire visit. As the tour continued, De Niro was led through yet another high-security door, this one more heavily guarded than the others. The hallway was narrow, and the air felt different, tense, almost secretive. He could tell that this section of the headquarters wasn't open to just anyone, it was off-limits to most people, even within the Secret Service itself. "This area is strictly classified," the agent guiding De Niro explained. "What we do here goes far beyond what you've seen so far." De Niro followed the agent through the maze of corridors, his curiosity growing by the second. They stopped in front of a door secured by multiple locks, and the agent typed in a code. When the door swung open, De Niro stepped inside and was greeted by an entirely different world, a room filled with monitors, data feeds and high-level intelligence reports. This wasn't just about protection, it was about covert operations, missions that took place in the shadows, away from the eyes of the public. The agent gave him a brief rundown of what went on here. "These operations are highly sensitive. They involve everything from global intelligence gathering to tracking potential international threats. We're not just protecting individuals, we're preventing crises before they happen, sometimes long before they become public knowledge." De Niro was stunned, as someone who had spent years portraying characters involved in espionage, crime and undercover work. He thought he had a good sense of what went on behind closed doors. But this was a different level altogether. The types of operations carried out here weren't just secret, they were the kind of missions that could alter the course of global events, without anyone ever knowing. The agent explained that the Secret Service didn't just operate within U.S. borders. They were part of an international network, working with agencies from around the world to track threats, intercept criminal activity and gather intelligence. De Niro listened intently, his mind racing as he began to comprehend the scope of what the Secret Service did beyond protecting the president. He was shown a series of intelligence reports detailing operations in foreign countries, some of which involved tracking high-level criminal organizations and preventing attacks on U.S. interests abroad. It was like something out of a spy thriller, but this wasn't fiction. This was real. One of the most shocking things De Niro learned was how these operations were conducted under such intense secrecy. There were entire missions that had been carried out without anyone, not even the public or the media, ever knowing. The agents were tasked with preventing threats before they even materialized, and the risk involved was immense. As the agent spoke, De Niro couldn't help but think about the roles he had played over the years, characters who operated in the shadows, fighting crime and danger in ways that always seemed larger than life. But none of them compared to the real operations he was seeing now. These were real missions, where the stakes weren't just high, they were life or death. What struck him the most though was how much of this work was done in silence. There were no accolades, no recognition. These agents operated in the shadows, ensuring that their work was never seen, but always felt. Their role in the global security apparatus was indispensable, yet they remained faceless, their achievements never mentioned outside the walls of this headquarters. De Niro, who had spent years playing characters who reveled in danger and secrecy, suddenly found himself in awe of these real-life agents. They weren't performing for an audience, they were saving lives, preventing tragedies, and shaping the future in ways he had never imagined. As De Niro continued his tour of the Secret Service headquarters, one of the agents casually mentioned something that caught him off guard. It was a side of the operation he had never even considered. "Believe it or not," the agent said, with a half-smile, "celebrities like you sometimes find yourselves in the middle of our operations." De Niro paused. He was used to being the center of attention in Hollywood, but the idea of being part of something so serious, something so deeply intertwined with national security, had never crossed his mind. He was just an actor after all. What did he have in common with the high-stakes world of the Secret Service? The agent explained further. While our primary mission is protecting the president and other top officials, we also protect high-profile individuals, including celebrities. Sometimes those people find themselves in dangerous situations without realizing it. Whether it's because of obsessive fans, potential threats, or simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time, we're often called in to ensure their safety during high-profile events. De Niro was intrigued. He had always known that the Secret Service was tasked with protecting the president, but the idea that they also provided protection for celebrities, often without anyone knowing, was a revelation. The agent went on to explain how the Secret Service's role in these situations was often covert. Celebrities, like politicians, were targets for a variety of reasons, and the agent's job was to ensure that nothing went wrong, sometimes without drawing any attention at all. It's a strange kind of protection, the agent continued. We work behind the scenes. Often the celebrities don't even know how much we're involved. Our agents attend events, conduct background checks, and stay alert for any sign of danger, all without making a scene. De Niro was surprised by the depth of the responsibility. He had always seen himself as a mere figure in the public eye, but to hear that agents were out there, working quietly to ensure his safety, along with other celebrities, was something he hadn't expected. He listened as the agent told stories of past events, where the Secret Service had stepped in to protect stars during major public appearances. Whether it was a large public gathering, a red carpet event, or an international film premiere, the agents had been there, watching from the sidelines, making sure everything ran smoothly. What's amazing, the agent said, is that the public never knows how much we're involved. You'll never see our agents in the background of a photo, but they're always there, ensuring that no threat gets too close. De Niro was struck by how much the Secret Service was involved in the protection of the public, even those who were rarely thought of as potential targets. It made him realize just how vital the work of these agents really was. The world he knew, filled with fame, lights, and red carpets, was in many ways just as vulnerable as the world of politicians and government officials. As the agent spoke, De Niro couldn't help but think about his own experiences at major events, those glamorous nights where the world seemed to be watching. In those moments, he had always felt like the center of attention, but now, standing in the headquarters of the Secret Service, he realized that the true attention wasn't on the celebrities themselves. It was on the quiet professionals working behind the scenes to ensure that everyone, from heads of state to Hollywood stars, stayed safe. De Niro had always known that the world of Hollywood was full of surprises, but this was something he could never have imagined. The stakes were high in both worlds, and the agents who protected these figures worked just as hard to keep the limelight from ever turning into a danger zone. As the tour came to an end, De Niro found himself standing alone in a small quiet room near the back of the Secret Service headquarters. The echoes of the day's experiences played in his mind, as he reflected on everything he had witnessed. He had entered this building with the curiosity of an actor, used to playing the roles of those who operated in the shadows, but what he had found here, what he had seen and learned, was nothing like the world he'd portrayed on screen. He sat in a chair for a moment, the weight of the day's revelations sinking in. The Secret Service was no fictional organization, it was a critical part of the nation's security, operating in ways that were far more complex and high stakes than he could have imagined. He thought about the agents he had met, their professionalism, their calmness in the face of danger, their unwavering focus on their mission. They weren't just protecting politicians and officials, they were the unseen guardians of society, working quietly but tirelessly to safeguard lives. For an actor like De Niro, whose life was spent immersing himself in stories, some of them involving crime, espionage, and high tension, this was an entirely new level of reality. He had played the role of the criminal mastermind, the FBI agent, the detective, but none of those characters came close to what he had witnessed today. The technology, the operations, the covert missions, these weren't just scripts to memorize. They were the real-life efforts of people who put everything on the line to protect the nation. He thought about the unexpected discoveries, the high-tech gadgets, the surveillance systems that predicted threats before they happened, and the secretive operations that prevented catastrophes from reaching the public's eye. These weren't just tools, they were life-saving instruments, operating in the background, unnoticed by the world. The people who worked in this building had no desire for fame or recognition. They didn't seek the spotlight. They were focused on one thing: keeping everyone, from the president to ordinary citizens, safe. The idea that the Secret Service also provided protection to celebrities was something that truly stunned him. De Niro had always thought of himself as just another figure in the world of Hollywood, far removed from the high-stakes world of national security, but now, he saw how interconnected these worlds really were. Celebrities, like him, were sometimes targets, witnesses, or even unknowing participants in operations that were more crucial than anything he'd ever imagined. As he stood to leave, De Niro took one last look around the headquarters. The quiet hum of activity continued around him, the agents moving from one mission to the next, always vigilant, always alert. It was a surreal feeling for him, a man who had spent decades pretending to live in dangerous high-stakes worlds of crime and intrigue, to understand how real those worlds were for these men and women in the Secret Service. He realized that his perspective had forever changed. What seemed like fiction in movies had now become a part of his understanding of the world. The real heroes weren't on screen, they were behind the scenes, working tirelessly to ensure the safety and security of everyone, often without anyone knowing. For the first time, De Niro understood the true meaning of protection. He had always thought of it as a simple job, something to keep people safe, but now, it felt like a calling. A duty that required an unwavering commitment to something much greater than oneself. And though he had entered the building as a curious visitor, he left with a newfound respect for those who served in silence. Their work, he realized, was far from glamorous. But it was absolutely essential.